Imagine, for a moment, you are building a bridge spanning a treacherous, windswept gorge. You have two candidates applying to lead the construction. Candidate A is a Harvard-educated structural engineer with a master's degree in applied physics and 30 years of experience building suspension bridges across the globe. Candidate B is a man who fixes lawnmowers in his residential garage and occasionally tinkers with old bicycles. Who do you hire? The engineer, obviously. The choice is so clear it borders on the absurd. And if you needed open-heart surgery, you would demand a board-certified cardiothoracic surgeon, not the local butcher. If you were flying across the Atlantic, you would want a veteran pilot in the cockpit, not a teenager who enjoys flight simulators. In physics, in medicine, in engineering, in aviation, expertise is a linear, predictable equation. The more formal education you have, the more data you have consumed, and the higher your IQ, the better your outcomes will inevitably be. Competence in these fields is a hard science, but then there is the anomaly, the massive, glaring glitch in the matrix of human intellect, the world of money. We refer to this anomaly as Case 027, or what behavioral economists whisper about in the dark, the ego default. In the specific domain of personal finance and investing, and perhaps only in this domain, a complete amateur with zero formal training, no college degree, and no financial background can utterly obliterate the smartest, most highly educated, meticulously trained professional in the room. This is not a theoretical thought experiment. This is a forensic reconstruction of two very real lives. Two men who never met, who lived in completely different stratospheres of American society, but whose parallel trajectories form the ultimate, undeniable case study in the psychology of wealth. We are going to examine the Tycoon and the Janitor. Subject A is the Tycoon. Let's call him Richard. Richard was everything society tells us a winner is supposed to be. He was fiercely intelligent, possessing a mind built for complex mathematics and rapid-fire problem-solving. He was educated at Harvard University. He went on to secure an MBA from the University of Chicago, widely considered the absolute crucible of modern economic theory. He wasn't just a participant in the financial system, he was one of its architects. He became a high-ranking executive at Merrill Lynch, navigating the cutthroat world of global finance with ease. He was so incredibly successful, so financially dominant, that he was able to retire in his 40s to pursue high society philanthropy. Subject B is the Janitor. Let's call him Ronald. Ronald was born in rural Vermont, far from the towering glass skyscrapers of Wall Street. He was a quiet, unassuming man. He was the first person in his entire family to even graduate from high school. He never set foot on a college campus as a student. Instead, he went to work. He spent 25 years repairing cars at a local gas station, covered in grease and motor oil. When he retired from being a mechanic, he took up another modest job, spending 17 years sweeping floors as a part-time janitor at a local JCPenney. In 2014, the universes of both these men collided in the headlines of the financial press. One of these men filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy. He stood before a judge, humiliated, with his multi-million-dollar mansion in active foreclosure, his accounts drained, entirely and hopelessly wiped out. The other man died peacefully in his sleep at the age of 92, leaving behind a staggering, incomprehensible $8 million fortune, directing millions to his local library and hospital. The broke, devastated man standing in front of the bankruptcy judge was the Harvard-educated MBA. The $8 million philanthropist was the janitor who swept the floors at JCPenney. Welcome to Case 027. Let's open the file and dissect exactly how the genius lost everything and how the floor sweeper conquered the world. To understand how the Tycoon fell from such dizzying heights, you have to understand the architectural flaws in how he built his empire. Richard didn't just possess money. He possessed an insatiable appetite for leverage. Leverage, in the financial world, is the equivalent of driving a high-performance 12-cylinder sports car at 200 miles per hour without wearing a seatbelt. It is the practice of using borrowed money to amplify your potential returns. When you are right, you look like a god. When you are wrong, you are vaporized. Richard borrowed heavily to fund a lifestyle that he felt accurately reflected his immense intellect and status. He purchased an estate in Greenwich, Connecticut, so massive that it featured 2 elevators, 11 bathrooms, and a $90,000 a month maintenance bill. But he didn't stop at real estate. He continually expanded his financial footprint. He leveraged his existing assets, taking out massive loans against his sprawling portfolio to invest in increasingly complex, high-yield, opaque ventures. Psychologically, Richard suffered from a fatal cognitive bias known as the illusion of control. When you are consistently the smartest person in every boardroom you enter, a dangerous mutation occurs in your mindset. You begin to mistake a probability for absolute certainty. You begin to believe that your exceptionally high IQ can act as an impenetrable shield against the sheer, violent chaos of the global market. You develop the ego default. The ego default dictates that high intellect naturally produces high arrogance. Richard knew exactly how mortgage-backed securities worked. He understood the complex calculus behind beta, alpha, standard deviation, and derivative pricing. He could read a balance sheet like a virtuoso reads sheet music. But in his obsession with the mathematics of finance, he forgot the one unpredictable, unquantifiable variable that defies all logic and all algorithms: the visceral panic of the human herd. Then, the year 2008 arrived. The global financial system seized up in a terrifying, unprecedented cardiac arrest. Credit markets froze. Liquidity vanished overnight. Suddenly, Richard's highly optimized, perfectly engineered financial machine hit a solid brick wall of pure, unadulterated panic. The banks, terrified of their own insolvency, began to call in their debts. But the banks didn't care about Richard's Ivy League pedigree. They didn't care about his standard deviation models or his macroeconomic theories. The banks only cared about one thing: cold, hard cash. And Richard, despite his vast paper wealth, had none. His deeply illiquid assets plummeted in value, but his massive debt remained entirely static. The margin calls rolled in like a relentless tide. The Harvard genius, the former master of the universe at Merrill Lynch, was cornered. His intellect could not negotiate with a frozen credit market. He was forced to stand before a bankruptcy judge, declaring that he had zero income and insurmountable, crushing liabilities. The sprawling Greenwich mansion was foreclosed upon. The Tycoon was entirely, unceremoniously wiped out, a victim of his own desperate need to maximize every single penny through the reckless use of leverage. While Richard was navigating complex derivatives and collateralized debt obligations in glass boardrooms, Ronald was wearing a frayed blue canvas jacket, quietly pushing a broom across the linoleum floors of a JCPenney in Vermont. Ronald did not have a high-speed Bloomberg trading terminal. He did not have a wealth manager or a team of analysts at his disposal. Friends and neighbors remember him as a remarkably frugal man, someone who would use safety pins to hold his worn-out coat together just to avoid the expense of buying a new one. Ronald lived a life of extraordinary simplicity. He resided in the exact same modest, unassuming house he had purchased for $12,000 at age 38. To the outside observer, he was a pleasant, quiet man who enjoyed chopping his own firewood and reading the newspaper over a cheap cup of black diner coffee. If you had told his closest friends that he had exactly $100 to his name, they would have believed you without hesitation. If you had told them he was a multimillionaire, they would have assumed you were out of your mind. But Ronald had a secret. It was a profoundly boring, agonizingly slow, and incredibly powerful secret. Ronald understood something on an intrinsic, instinctual level that Richard utterly failed to grasp with his vast intellect. Ronald understood that wealth is not a function of your income or your ability to model market trends. Wealth is entirely a function of your savings rate combined with a massive runway of time. Every month, for decades, Ronald took whatever meager financial surplus he had left over from sweeping floors and fixing transmissions, and he bought shares in high-quality blue-chip companies. He didn't chase trends. He didn't trade volatile options. He didn't short the market or dabble in foreign exchange. He certainly didn't try to time the euphoric peaks of the dot-com bubble or the terrifying troughs of the 2008 financial crisis. He simply bought well-established, dividend-paying American companies, and he held on to them. For years. For decades. When the Black Monday crash of 1987 occurred, erasing billions in wealth in a single afternoon, Ronald did nothing. When the dot-com bubble burst in the early 2000s, vaporizing the portfolios of day traders, Ronald did nothing. And when the catastrophic 2008 financial crisis hit, the very same crisis that completely annihilated Richard's highly leveraged empire, Ronald simply watched the news and went back to sweeping floors. He didn't panic sell at the bottom of the market because he had absolutely no debt. Nobody could call in a margin loan on Ronald's portfolio because he didn't owe a single institution a dime. His financial structure was completely anti-fragile. His ego was zero. His patience was infinite. He allowed the dividends to reinvest year after year, triggering the unstoppable mathematical miracle of compound interest. By the time Ronald passed away at age 92, those small, seemingly insignificant monthly stock purchases had compounded into a towering mountain of capital. The snowball had rolled down a very, very long hill. When his estate was finally tallied, it was worth an astonishing $8 million. He left $2 million to his stepchildren, and he endowed $6 million to his local hospital and the town library, securing his legacy forever. The world was completely shocked. The media descended on the small Vermont town. Lawyers, financial advisors, and bewildered neighbors scoured through the details of his life, desperately searching for a secret winning lottery ticket, a hidden inheritance, or a covert tech investment. They found absolutely nothing. There was no secret to be found. There was only relentless, unyielding behavior. So, we arrive at the core of Case 027. We must perform the psychological autopsy. How does a man with no education, earning a near minimum wage for his entire life, utterly defeat a man with the highest financial pedigree and access to the greatest resources in the world? The answer lies in the fundamental, undeniable nature of money. We are conditioned by society to believe that investing is a hard science, a branch of mathematics where the smartest person inherently wins. We are taught that if you learn the complex formulas, if you memorize the algorithms, you will inevitably get rich. But money is not math. Money is psychology. It is erratic human behavior wrapped up in numbers. Richard failed because his high intelligence inevitably led to devastating arrogance. He built a financial structure that required absolute perfection to survive. It required the global market to behave rationally. It required his income to remain consistently high. It required a complete absence of black swan events. He optimized his life for maximum return, but he completely failed to optimize for survival. Ronald succeeded because his complete lack of ego allowed him to build a financial structure based entirely on endurance. He didn't need to prove he was smart. He only needed to prove he was disciplined. If we break down the ego default, we find 5 strict behavioral laws where the janitor decisively beat the tycoon. Law number 1, the goalpost. Richard suffered from moving goalposts. He made millions, but he constantly compared himself to the billionaires. To bridge that agonizing gap, he took on ruinous risk. The ego dictates that you must always have more to validate your perceived intelligence. Ronald kept his goalpost bolted firmly to the floor. A warm coat, a cup of coffee, a quiet life. Because he didn't need his wealth to signal his status to others, his wealth was allowed to compound in the dark. Law number 2, the room for error. Richard operated with zero margin of safety. His massive leverage meant that a mere 20% drop in asset prices would wipe out 100% of his equity. Ronald operated with an absolute margin of safety. He carried zero debt. If his portfolio dropped by 50% in a given year, his day-to-day life remained entirely unchanged. Survival is the single most important metric in finance. Law. Number 3. The dopamine of action. Highly intelligent people are heavily biased toward action. They want to constantly tweak, adjust, pivot, and outsmart the system. They want to prove their genius by actively doing things. Richard was a flurry of constant financial action. Ronald embraced the immense power of doing absolutely nothing. In investing, agonizing boredom is a highly profitable, highly underrated strategy. Law number 4. The poison of envy. Intelligence often breeds envy, the desire to outpace one's intellectual peers. Richard was driven by the fear of falling behind other Wall Street executives. Envy causes smart money to make phenomenally dumb decisions. Ronald lived in a vacuum of comparison. He envied no one, which meant no one could goad him into a reckless investment. Law number 5. The time horizon. Genius tries to compress time. It tries to get rich quickly by outsmarting the immediate present. Behavior respects time. It accepts that true wealth takes decades to mature. Genius is fragile. It shatters under extreme pressure. It overthinks. It chronically underestimates the dark randomness of the universe. Behavior is resilient. It absorbs macroeconomic shocks. It waits. You cannot teach a janitor to perform open-heart surgery. You cannot teach a mechanic to engineer a skyscraper. But you can put a mechanic and a Harvard executive in the stock market, and if the mechanic possesses a better temperament, he will win every single time. Financial success is a soft skill, where how you behave is fundamentally more important than what you know. Intelligence will help you design the machine, but your behavior is what keeps the machine from tearing itself apart. Do not let the ego default trick you into believing your brain can outsmart time. Case closed.